Welcome back to the series where I take a look at the Johto boss fights and do my best to fix them within the Gen 4 Heart Gold Soul Silver mechanics. It is finally time to take a look at the last gauntlet of the Johto region, the Elite 4. So if you haven't seen the videos covering the gym leaders, check that out using the links in the description below. With that said, I've made these changes to improve teams reasonably while trying to stay true to their original ideas. I will be increasing the levels to these teams to correspond with a better level curve that I would weave into this version of the game too. So with that out of the way, let's begin. Starting with the first member of the Elite 4, the Psychic type Master, Will. And Will's team currently overall has some solid coverage and decent status moves, but I think there's a lot of room for improvement here. For starters, he's using the same Pokemon twice, when there are so many other Psychic types he could be using. I mean, I'm genuinely curious as to why Game Freak gave him 2 Xatus. It's such an interesting choice, so we'll be replacing that. There's also a few easy things we could do to give more Gen 2 Pokemon some time in the limelight here. And with Claire's gym team now being up to level 47, I think it's fair to have Will be bumped to just above that. So let's get into it. First up, instead of the first Xatu, Will be sending out his new Giraffe rig at level 48 with Inner Focus and the moves Stomp, Baton Pass, Psychic, and Calm Mind. This guy is meant to throw any potential ghost type counters off balance, and if it's in a tough position, all it really needs to do is Calm Mind into a Baton Pass to help any of the other mons out. I really like this pick, and it's a shame that it doesn't get much time in the spotlight in the original games. And now that Jinx has been put onto Price's team, I think that warrants a change to Will's, who will instead be sending out a Wobbuffet at level 49 with Shadow Tag and the only moves it can get without being a why not first. I think here, this guy's low exposure to Johto might actually help out his whole gimmick, hopefully causing some form of mayhem for the player. Additionally, I just think he works with Will's mysterious vibe he's putting off. Next up, Will usually sends in a Slowbro, but I see no reason to not switch this guy out into a Slowking, as they are very similar stat-wise, with the only difference being their defense stats on the physical and special sides being swapped. So Will's Slowking will be level 49 with own tempo to block confusion and the moves Psychic, Surf, Power Gym, and Nasty Plot. Power Gym is a great addition for coverage, alongside a wild Nasty Plot, making this thing a force to be reckoned with. Out next is Will's Executor at level 49 with Chlorophyll and the moves Reflect, Psychic, Giga Drain, and Hypnosis. Here, the only thing I thought that could be improved is the use of Egg Bomb, as it's a pretty inaccurate move and doesn't get much power out of it as it's a physical move. So I think Giga Drain is the much better option for some stab recovery. Finally, will send out his ace, Xatu, at level 50 with Synchronize instead of Early Bird to pass any status effects the player tries to give it, and the moves Psychic, Confuse Ray, U-Turn, and Wish. Here, I decided it'd be fun to sort of combine the two movesets of the Xatus and include U-Turn, but also incorporate Wish. So if it wants to heal a teammate, it could easily set up a Wish and then U-Turn to get some damage off while doing so. I also thought that it was okay to get rid of Aerial Ace, a stab move for Xatu, because it's physical, and Xatu doesn't even get Air Slash. So the next best thing for it would be Air Cutter from the move tutor, but at that point, I think having Confuse Ray would be a better way to throw the player off balance. And that is Will's new and improved team. And for the items, I think for the Elite 4, I'll be giving an additional item to the team alongside the Citrus Berries, kind of like how Koga already has Black Sludge on Muck. Here, I'm thinking I'll stick a Light Clay on Executor so that Reflect continues to be a problem for longer in the fight, along with the included Citrus Berry on Xatu. Next up is the Poison type Master, who we have seen before on this channel, and I'd like to keep the changes I had in mind for his Cantonian team for his Elite 4 team here. And because we've given Jasmine a Fortress, I think I have a better option in mind here for Koga. So with that, let's dive in. First up, instead of Ariados, Koga will be sending out a Quillfish at level 50 with Poison Point and the moves Aqua Tail, Poison Jab, Toxic Spikes, and Explosion. This new lead will set up Toxic Spikes before either getting off decent damage with a stab move or hitting the Explode button, acting as a fun little homage to how this guy is based on an underwater mine. While this fish doesn't have the best defenses, and it only gets Intimidate as a hidden ability in later gens, I think it'll be a fine replacement for Ariados, as I always felt this guy was outclassed by a lot up in the league. And plus, I think Quillfish fits the dark and fast aesthetic he's going for, especially over the likes of a popular mon that people usually like to give him, Tentacruel, even though it's probably a better Pokemon stat-wise. After that, Koga will send out the replacement for Fortress, Scizor, at level 51 ton with Technician, and the moves X Scissor, Swords Dance, Nice Slash for good coverage, and Bullet Punch for a great priority stab option. And this might be a controversial pick, but I truly believe that Scizor fits Koga's vibe much more than Forretress. Plus, this guy will surely be putting a wrench in anyone's plan to sweep Koga with a Psychic type. And beyond Scizor is Koga's Muff at level 50 with Sticky Hold and the moves Gug Shot, Dig, Acid Armor, and Toxic. This guy didn't need much improvement, although I did replace Minimize with the TM for Dig for some added coverage. I'm just generally not a fan of the evasiveness strats, but with Acid Armor being added, I think this set will provide just as much difficulty without the annoyance of Minimize. Next out is Koga's Venomoth at level 50 with Tinted Lens and the moves Psychic, Sludge Bomb, Sleep Powder, and Signal Beam. With Sleep Powder added for the additional status condition, the player will need to play around. I think that's a fair switch from Toxic, especially with Toxic Spikes being on Quillfish. And finally, Koga will be sending out his ace, Crobat, at level 52 with Inner Focus and the moves Cross Poison, Confuse Ray, Bite, and Aerial Ace, who, now that Golbat has been added to his gym team, can be seen to have finally gotten friendly enough with Koga to evolve. I think the old moveset left a lot to be desired, especially with Quick Attack not ever being too useful, as Crobat would just be able to outspeed most enemies. Additionally, I think with the chance of the player being confused and having a chance to flinch with Bite, they'll definitely need to take this thing seriously. And that is Koga's new team. I think I've done enough to balance the team out without the use of evasiveness strats, to the point where it's just as strong with those moves. And for the items, I'll be keeping them the same, with Black Sludge on Muff and a Citrus Berry on Crobat. Third up in the Elite Four gauntlet is the Fighting type Master, Bruno. And once again, we're no stranger to his team. In the Fixing Kanto's Elite Four video, we gave this guy a Primeape and kept one of his Onix for this very moment. So without further ado, let's high jump in. First up, we'll be replacing the Hitmontop with the Primeape from his revamped Kanto team. Here, I know I'm replacing a Johto pick with a Kanto one, but I really think it's a better pick for Bruno, while Chuck can have the Hitmontop in Cyanwood City. Primeape will be level 52 with Anger Point and the moves Brick Break, Punishment, Swagger, and Rock Slide. What we've done is given him Punishment over the old set with Dig, as it's now a level up move for him. Ideally, Primeape will start with a Swagger, which sharply boosts the opponent's attack while confusing them, making the following punishment hit at 100 base power off rip. I think this is a perfect way to start the battle to prevent anyone from setting up at the start, as the move's base power will only climb higher until it maxes out at 200. Next up, Bruno will send out his Hitmonlee at level 52 with Reckless and the moves Blaze Kick, Mind Reader, High Jump Kick, and Fake Out, a move specifically only learned by Tyrogue, implying Bruno found a Tyrogue in between games and it turned out to roll into a Hitmonlee. Here, I'm hoping the AI will go for Fake Out for the free chip damage and then set up a Mind Reader before Wrecking House with High Jump Kick. Next out is Hitmonchan at level 52 with Iron Fist and the Elemental Punches and Mach Punch instead of Bullet Punch. I don't really see too much benefit offensively in having a Steel type attacking move, so I went ahead and gave it a stab priority option instead. Bruno, instead of Onix, will then send out his evolved Steelix at level 53 with Rock Head and the moves Curse, Earthquake, Rock Slide, and Double Edge. I made sure to not take Sturdy on this Steelix again, as it's not the Sturdy that we know of until Gen 5, so Rock Head is just better here in Heart Gold Soul Silver. I'm hoping that Steelix will be able to get off a Curse or two before getting some damage to solidify its status as a wall. Finally, Bruno will send in his ace, Machamp at level 54 with No Guard and the moves Stone Edge, Dynamic Punch, Revenge, and Focus Energy. Here, all I've really done is turned this guy's moveset up to 11 in order to take advantage of that No Guard ability. With 100 base power, Dynamic Punches, and Stone Edges being sure hits, this fight will be no joke. And that's Bruno for you. I think we've done a good job here in not only improving his Johto Indigo Plateau team, but also giving his team from the Fixing Kanto's Elite Four team an improvement too. Oh, and for the item, I'll be sticking a Quick Claw on the Steelix for any potential funny moments, and keeping the Citrus Berry on the Machamp. Finally, we have reached the last member of the Elite Four, Karen, and her current team is really fun, as she is notorious for only using Pokemon that she likes rather than the ones that are the best. But there's one change that I really want to make here that I hope won't be in contrast with that idea, but we'll cross that bridge when we get there. First up, Karen will send out her Umbreon at level 54 with Synchronize, and the moves Moonlight, Confuse Ray, Feint Attack, and Last Resort. The main difference here is the loss of Double Team, but but I think gaining a move that heals you is equally as beneficial, as it's hard to see this Pokemon getting taken out in a single shot. And Last Resort is just a fun pick, as it could be seen to have used all 3 of its moves and still be standing enough to get some major damage on the player. Next up is Karen's Houndoom being relegated from the ace position at level 55 with Flash Fire, and the moves Nasty Plot, Dark Pulse, Flamethrower, and Thunderfang. Here, the only real change I needed to make was switching out Crunch with a move relearner move in Thunderfang, making this a much more scary threat to deal with if you're using a water type. Next up, Karen will be sending out her now evolved Honchkrow at level 54 with Super Luck and the moves Sucker Punch, Night Slash, Drill Peck, and Haze for the elimination of any chances of the player setting up. I think it's totally fair here to have her Murkrow evolve, even though it's another Gen 4 evolution, but I see no issue here as Murkrows originate here in Johto. Out next, Karen will send out her Gengar at level 54 with Levitate and the moves Focus Blast, Destiny Bond, Dark Pulse, and Shadow Ball. Here, I think its moveset has really been improved from the Spite and Lick combos it sported before. I know Focus Blast is a bit of a meme here, but when it does actually hit, it provides a really strong coverage attack for this guy, so I'm keeping it. And finally, I'll be replacing Karen's Vileplume with a Tyranitar, now becoming Karen's ace at level 56 with Sandstream and the moves Rock Slide, Crunch, Earthquake, and Ice Fang for coverage. Now, I know this could be seen as a knock on Karen's favorite over best mentality, but Tyranitar was never seen as the best of the best, and it's just a shame that it was never used by a single trainer in its home region. So I think it's safe to say that Karen could see this guy as one of her favorites here too, and this guy is definitely going to be a problem for players to get around. So that's Karen's new and improved team. I think even with the swap in Pokemon, we've kept true to Karen's core belief and made her favorite Pokemon absolute units to deal with on the battlefield. And the item here will be a Scope Lens given to Honchkrow to up that Super Luck crit chance. Now, when it uses Night Slash in Gen 4, it'll crit a third of the time, making it a very scary mon to deal with. And we'll go ahead and toss that Citrus Berry onto the Tyranitar instead. But wait, we may have defeated the final Elite Four member, but we're not done yet, as Lance, the champion of the Johto Indigo League, is waiting. And honestly, just like the last time in the Kanto Elite Four video, I don't think he requires a lot of changes, as many of his moves may not be the most reliable, but they definitely fit the vibe that Lance is going for, as he aims to do as much damage as fast as he can, so we'll keep that in mind here. I also see a lot of people wanting to give this guy a Kingdra, as it's actually the only other dragon type in the region, but I really like the idea of that mon only being given to Claire while Lance gets Dragonite. It's a fun dichotomy that lets both of their teams shine and attempting to fill them out with Pokemon that might match their vibes. I will say though that 3 Dragonites is a bit much, so I do want to see if there's room for a different Pokemon that could be found in the HGSS Pokédex. And honestly, there are not a lot of options to choose from here, especially if you don't include Kingdra, but I think I was able to come up with a decent replacement here, so let's get into it. First up, Lance will be sending out his Gyarados at level 56 with Intimidate and the moves Dragon Pulse, Dragon Dance, Aqua Tail, and Ice Fang. Thankfully, even the original Gyarados already had a stab physical water type move in Waterfall, but I opted for Aqua Tail here instead, doing slightly more damage, along with replacing Flail with Dragon Dance for a potential scary start to the battle. Next up, instead of Lance's first Dragonite, he'll be sending out a Yanmega at level 56 with Speed Boost, and the moves Bug Buzz, Ancient Power, Air Slash, and Hyper Beam. Now, I understand this pick is a little out there, but everyone thinks this Dragonfly deserves the Dragon typing, so on some level there is some merit to this guy being here. Plus, I think with it sporting the moves Ancient Power and Hyper Beam, this evolution to a Gen 2 Pokemon will fit right in. And on top of that, it's one of the 5 Gen 4 evolutions that you can find naturally in Johto due to it evolving after learning a specific move. Next out is a Dragonite that is being kept at level 57 and no other changes, as its inaccurate but devastating moves are just too iconic. From here, Lance will send out his Aerodactyl at level 57 with an absolutely perfect moveset. No notes, Game Freak. After Aerodactyl comes Lance's Charizard at level 56 with Blaze and the moves Air Slash, Flamethrower, Shadow Claw, and Dragon Pulse. Here, the only thing I wanted to change up was giving him special moves, as his special attack is higher, plus the base damage on them are also a boost anyways, so overall this guy is going to be outputting a lot more power. Finally, Lance's is Ace, Dragonite, at level 58 with Inner Focus and the moves Dragon Dance, Outrage, Fire Punch, and Hyper Beam. I added Dragon Dance because I truly think that there is something interesting that is added to the fight when you don't know whether or not the opponent is going to set up or do damage, especially when you don't outspeed. And I went ahead and did the opposite of Charizard here and gave Dragonite a physical fire move in Fire Punch that does do more damage when taking its physical attack stat in mind. But I think the inclusion of Hyper Beam still makes this behemoth of a Mon in line with Lance's character. And there you have it, that's Lance. I think we did a decent job of making his team better while staying within the bounds of what his vibe calls for. And for the items, with Aerodactyl being such a hard hitter, I think it's fair enough to give it a life orb, so it'll just keep dishing out harder damage, while I'll toss a Persenberry on the Ace Dragonite to cure the confusion from being locked into Outrage. And there we have it. That is the Elite Four and Champion from the Johto region reimagined. I think overall, we've given these teams a decent buff while also giving them a few new Johtonian faces along the way. And now that I'm playing through the Kalos region on my streams in preparation for Pokemon Legends ZA, I'm thinking I'll be covering Pokemon X and Y in this series next. But either way, let me know what you think in the comments below. And if you like what you saw here, be sure to leave a like and hit the subscribe button, as it helps me out a lot. Oh, and by the way, thank you so much to my members. You guys are the best. And with that, I've been O Creations, and I'll see you all in the next one. Bye!